All right, guys, I just realized I didn't do an overview of the Case IH 685 that I have. Probably because I'm on it most of the time and talking to you guys while I'm running it, so I kind of went by the wayside. Just thought I'd do an overview of how I ended up with a 685 international case. Back when I started this operation, I went down to a dealer in New Providence, Pennsylvania. It's Her and Lehman, and they have some pretty nice equipment down there. I love going on their website every day and seeing what they have, and they're basically just a used dealer. They don't sell anything new, but the equipment that they do have, the used stuff, is always real nice. I'm always looking to see what they have or trade it in. And the reason I went down there, I wasn't going down there to look at the 685 because it wasn't on their website yet. I went down there to look at an International 826. That was a gear drive with the German diesel engine in it. That was the tractor I was looking for bale and hay before I got the 986. It had high hours on this 826. I think it had around 85 or 8,700 hours, but it looked nice. It looked original. It was something I wanted to definitely check out. I didn't know how they would be on negotiating price. I thought it was pretty expensive for the amount of hours that are on it, but if it was in pretty good shape, I had no problem with bringing it home. So it was about a 2.5 hour drive. My dad and I went down. I guess it was sometime over the winter. We get there and we look at this 826 and took it for a test drive, and you could tell it had over 8,000 hours. I mean, the shifters were wore pretty hard, the brake pedals were wore, the clutch, the 3-point, just about all the wear points. Had good tires on it, good sheet metal, but it was just something that I thought I'm gonna have to be putting a lot of money in fixing up some of the spots that are worn, and on top of it they wanted $10,900 for this tractor. So it wasn't something that I wanted to bring home, and they didn't really want to negotiate on price because 826s, there's not too many of them. I mean, they made quite a few of them, but the thing with international tractors is to find a tractor in that horsepower range, that 80 horsepower. The 826 was kind of the only one that filled the void for a while there. So I figured, well, we drove this far, let's walk around the lot and see what else is there. And I saw this 685 sitting there, and I gave it a good look over and took it for a test drive. And I think when I bought it, it had 3,100 hours, and the original hours. You can tell. One thing I'm surprised, it must have been sitting inside, whoever owned it before me all the time, because if you know anything about case paint, it really tends to fade and chip, and you know how it gets like that pink color to it. And I don't know, you can see here where the paint's chipped off, and it's just a gray primer underneath, and I don't see any other layers of paint. And it's hard to see anywhere. If they did repaint it at one point, they did a heck of a job, because I don't see any runs or anything that indicates that it was repainted. Even the black here, you can see it's just the gray primer underneath. The decals, you can see where they're peeled up. The paint underneath is similar to the top coat. So I don't know. I don't know who had it before me, and I didn't ask. I guess I should have. But the hours are original. I could tell. I mean, the one thing that gets wore on these is the brake pedals on the shaft. Over on this side, there's a shaft that goes through there, and the brake pedals, there's always a lot of play. There's not much there. So I was confident that the hours were original. So I don't know where it came from. I don't think they were the original rear tires. I don't know what. These are 18.430s, and that's what I wanted. So anyway, I went down to look at this 826, and I was looking for another utility tractor anyway, so I drove it around, and it was a pretty nice tractor, and I figured I'd think it over. and we went back home, and that was the end of it for a while. Down the road from my New Holland dealer here, we have a AGCO dealer, or it was an AGCO. I guess it used to be Oliver White. It's really basically just somebody's farm, and their machine shed is kind of a repair shop. I mean, there's nothing really that indicates that it's a dealer other than that they advertise equipment for sale. So they advertised a 674 diesel, and I went out to look at that. And one thing I wanted, there was a couple things I wanted that the utility tractor I was going to buy had to have. One was a bar axle that you could adjust the tires. I didn't want the flanged axle that you have to move the rim or the dish around to get the wheels where they have to be. I wanted a bar axle, and the bar axle transmissions I think were geared a little bit lower because I've operated 674s with the flanged axle, and the gearing just seems a little bit higher. So I don't know if these are more the row crop version versus the utility. I'm not 100%, don't quote me, but it seemed like the gearing is a lot lower in these. So I wanted the bar axle, and I also wanted a roll bar canopy. And the 674 had both the bar axle and the roll bar canopy, and I wanted 18.4 30s, not 16.9, just on account of I wanted a little bit of extra weight. With the calcium, that was the other thing. It had to have the calcium in the tires. Now the 674 that I went to look at, it wasn't bad. All the tin work was in nice shape. I drove it around a little bit. It seemed to run okay. Couple things that had issues with it that I didn't really care for. One, the clutch was about at the end of its life, so it would have taken a clutch right away. It's not major to do, but there's a little expense involved. So if I bought it, I would have had to put a clutch in. Second, the steering hand pump was leaking that bad on it that it was a seal on top, I think, and it was running down. There was just oil all over the dash. And if you know anything about those steering hand pumps, they are miserable to try to get sealed. We had some of them in the shop that we put seal kits in, and just from the heat of your hand touching the metal, it was enough to expand that hand pump, that the tolerances are that fine in that steering pump that you couldn't hardly get it back together. So it was one of those deals where I would just buy a reman one and put it on instead of trying to put a seal kit in. It had 18.4 30s, but they were a lot wore down further than these. It would have taken tires eventually, I'm pretty sure. So it's another reason why I didn't. They only wanted $6,500 for it, which was a pretty decent price. I think it had about 5,000 hours. So I tossed the idea around about the 674, and I had to pay a lot more for this. But this had almost 1,000 less hours. This was an 89 versus that one, which was like a 75, somewhere in there. So it's a lot newer. What else? This had the roll bar canopy also. It's a little bit nicer. It has the lights in it and everything. The other one was just basically a metal roof over your head. So I called, or actually her and Lehman had called me and asked what my plans were, or if I had decided on a tractor, or what I was planning to do. And I told them, I said, well, I'm kind of leaning towards the 685. Now, when it was down on their lot, these wheels were set very wide. Actually, this tire was on that side, and that tire was on this side. The hubs were facing out, and it was really wide. And I needed it to spray, so I needed it to be 30-inch centers. You measure from the center of your drawbar to the center of the tire, should be 30 inches. So that way you can straddle 2 rows of corn and fit through the rows. So I told him, I said, the issue is the tires, getting the wheels set the way I need them. I don't have a loader at the moment. I don't have much shop equipment. I said, I'd like to get those wheels changed around to be able to spray. So they said they would do that for me and not charge me for it. So, and I'm glad they didn't, because the only issue I have with this deal and this transaction was they didn't have the tires in the right place. They did change them right to left, left to right. So I was happy with that. All the heavy lifting was done. I didn't really get mad about it, but when I got it home and measured it, they had it on like 38-inch center. So I don't know if they just misunderstood me or what the deal was, but basically all I had to do then, the hard labor was done moving them. All I had to do was loosen the bolts, and I just got a bar underneath and just pushed them in and got them where they had to go. The front wheels, the tie rods were rusted fast. Now I've replaced the tie rods since. That was one thing that I had to do when I got it. I put 2 new tie rods on. The front wheels were sticking out further than the rear ones, but these dishes were on dished out. So all I had to do was go right to left, left to right, and now they're dished in, and they probably could go in one more hole. They're basically right at the end of the tire, maybe right about there, I'd say. But on the hills, I'm happy with it. I can get through the corn. I'm just gonna leave it like it is. So since I got it, like I said, I put 2 new tie rods on. These were from All-Statag parts, and they're a lot heavier than the ones that we're on. These aren't greasable. I wish they were, but they weren't that expensive. And I had to put an alternator on. I had the charging issue. You probably saw that in another video. So this one, like I say, it doesn't have the TA and it doesn't have the shuttle. And I didn't really want the All right, sorry, I'm back. The telemarketer just called me and knocked my camera off. And anyway, like I was saying, I didn't want the shuttle. It's better for a loader. This, I'm not doing a whole lot of front and back, so it wasn't a big deal that I was looking for something with the shuttle. And I didn't want the TA 2-speed, just on account of, like I said, it's more to go wrong, and simpler's better, in my opinion. So I was happy with that. One thing I wish it had 2 remote valves. This only has 1. A lot of them only had 1. It'd be nice if it had 2. Some of them you see with the dual PTO with the small 1000. I'm all right with the 540. I don't plan on using the I don't need a small 1000 right now. And if I didn't have that John Deere hay rake, that 3-point hitch, that's my only 3-point hitch piece of equipment other than the 3-point spot sprayer. But if it wasn't for that rake, if that was a drawbar, I would take these 3-point arms off to make it nicer for mowing hay and stuff like that. I just, 3-point arms are constantly in the way and a menace. So I have them on, and they'll probably stay on as long as I have that rake. And you saw the video, I put LED lights on the back here just because the one light was it was just one light and it wasn't really working that good. So now I put about 150 hours on, I think, somewhere in there since I bought it, and I haven't had any issues other than the charging issue. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's been doing pretty good. Like I say, I use it the most. It's the tractor I put the most hours on. I do have new front tires ordered. You can see how, I don't know, maybe you can't see how dry rotted they are, which leads me to believe this thing must have been sitting somewhere a lot of time, just sitting in the shed or something. But I did have a flat on the front already, so I'm getting to the point now. There is a little bit of tread there, but we're gonna put new tires on. And that's one thing I wish they were 16-inch. These are 18-inch 750 18 SL, and that makes them a little bit more expensive. And I think this winter I'm gonna be getting rear tires. These, I've never heard of these. These are Fidelity. The biggest thing I don't like about them, they're only 6-ply, and if you take notice, all along where the cleats are, they're dry rotted, just completely. And I did have an issue with this tire with air already, so I don't know what's going on there. So I'm gonna try to get some new Firestones put on here, make it a lot nicer. We'll see. I have to see how it does this winter with the selling corn and stuff, but I'm gonna try to get brand new tires, all 4 tires on it yet. And being that I don't have any roads to go on, they should last a long time. So I'm pretty sure that this was sitting in somebody's shed or garage for a lot of time. Weight bracket did come with it. I'm real happy that they left that on. I have to get some weights. So yeah, if anybody has any questions about a 685, has the 239 German engine, the Neuss engine. One thing I wish it had was the antifreeze filter, the conditioner filter. this doesn't have it on. I might put it on at some point, because the biggest drawback with these engines, there's only one O-ring that seals on the sleeve, and if the antifreeze gets old or you start to get some corrosion going on inside your engine, it eats away at the O-ring groove in the block. There's a groove, and then it lets antifreeze in your engine oil. We've had some issues with them with older Noise engines, and basically the only fix is another block. So keep clean antifreeze in your engine if you have one of these engines. Like I say, those kits, I think you can get the filter kit with the water conditioner. I don't know what they cost, but I think it's well worth it to have it on. So yeah, all right, I guess this video is long enough, so I figured I'd get an overview of the 685. It is a 1989. I think they made them till 90. So it's the second to last year of them, till they went to the 695 series. So thanks for watching.